A simple black nurse boards Billionaire's jet by mistake. Now she's on a romantic trip in Paris with him. "If you take one more step, I'll jump." Maya's voice trembles as she stands on the edge of the Eiffel Tower's observation deck, the wind whipping her curls around her tear-stained face. The city of Paris sparkles below like scattered diamonds on black velvet, indifferent to her pain. Behind her, James Harrison, billionaire, playboy, and the man she mistakenly fell in love with reaches out a shaking hand. "Please," he whispers, his voice breaking. "It was never a game to me. I need you to believe that." Maya's hospital scrubs, so out of place among the designer clothes of Parisian tourists, flutter in the night breeze. Just 72 hours ago, she was changing IV bags and checking vital signs in Baltimore. Now she's contemplating the void beneath her, wondering how a simple boarding mistake led to this moment of heartbreak and impossible choices. "You used me," she says, one foot inching backward, closer to nothing but air. "Was it funny to watch a small-town nurse believe someone like you could actually care about someone like me?" Behind James, a security guard approaches cautiously, radio in hand. In moments, this private agony will become a public spectacle. Time is running out. "Maya," James says, his blue eyes filled with a desperation she's never seen in them before. "The mistake was never you boarding my plane. The mistake was me thinking I could keep pretending to be the man everyone expects me to be. Instead of the man, I became the moment you walked into my life." But to understand how they reached this breaking point, how a dedicated nurse from Baltimore ended up on the edge of the Eiffel Tower with a billionaire begging for her forgiveness, we need to go back to where it all began. 3 days earlier, when a single wrong turn changed the course of 2 lives forever. The morning sun streams through the windows of Baltimore Memorial Hospital as Maya Johnson hurries down the corridor, her sensible shoes squeaking against the freshly polished floor. At 35, she has the confident stride of someone who knows exactly where they belong in the world. 15 years as a nurse has taught her that emergencies don't wait for convenience, and right now, she's running late for her flight. "Maya, before you go," Dr. Patel catches her arm as she rushes past the nurse's station. "Mrs. Rodriguez's test results came back. Can you call her family before you leave?" Maya glances at her watch. Her flight to Chicago departs in 2 hours. She's attending her first nursing conference in years, a rare opportunity she saved for months to afford. But Mrs. Rodriguez has been waiting anxiously for these results, and her family speaks limited English. "I'll make it quick," Maya says, already reaching for the phone. 20 minutes later, she's sprinting through the hospital parking garage, rolling suitcase bouncing wildly behind her. The Rodriguez family had questions, important ones, and Maya couldn't bring herself to rush them. Now she's cutting it dangerously close. Come on," she mutters, jabbing the elevator button repeatedly. When it finally arrives, she nearly collides with an elderly man shuffling out. "I'm so sorry," she says, steadying him with gentle hands before darting inside. At Baltimore Washington International Airport, Maya navigates security with practiced efficiency. Her sensible black pants and navy blouse, the closest things to business attire in her practical wardrobe, stand out among the designer outfits of business travelers. As she slips her shoes back on after the security check, the airport loudspeaker crackles. "Final boarding call for Flight 1527 to Chicago. All remaining passengers please proceed immediately to Gate C42. Maya's heart sinks. Gate C42? She could have sworn her boarding pass said D42. Fumbling for her phone, she opens her email confirmation. The gate number is indeed D42, but as she checks the time, cold realization washes over her. She misread her departure time. Her flight left 30 minutes ago. No, she whispers, frustration building behind her eyes. The conference begins tomorrow morning, and she's spent her meager savings on the non-refundable ticket and hotel reservation. Blinking back tears, Maya approaches the nearest airline counter. The attendant's sympathetic wince tells her everything before a word is spoken. "The next flight to Chicago is fully booked," the attendant says after tapping at her keyboard. "I could get you standby, but honestly, it doesn't look promising. There's a weather system moving in." Maya nods numbly. The conference she's dreamed of attending featuring speakers on advanced wound care techniques that could help her patients slipping away because she stayed to answer a family's questions. The bitter irony isn't lost on her. "Thank you anyway," she says, turning away. As she walks dejectedly through the terminal, Maya's phone buzzes with a text from her roommate Layla. "Boarding yet? Don't forget to breathe when you see all those fancy doctors." Maya can't bring herself to respond. Instead, she wanders toward Gate D42, the gate she should have been at, harboring a vague hope of finding a solution. When she arrives, the gate area is nearly empty except for a sleek corporate jet visible through the windows. A solitary airline employee stands by the boarding desk, speaking into a phone. "Yes, Mr. Harrison, we're holding the jet for you. Your assistant has already boarded." The gate agent nods. "Yes, sir, 20 minutes, we'll be ready." Maya approaches hesitantly. "Excuse me, I was supposed to be on the Chicago flight, but I mixed up the time." "Is there any way?" "Sorry," the agent interrupts, barely glancing at her. "This is a private flight." His phone rings again and he turns away, leaving Maya standing awkwardly beside the desk. She notices a boarding pass left on the counter. Peering at it, she sees Chicago printed in bold letters. Hope flickers. Maybe there's another flight she doesn't know about. The gate agent is now engaged in an intense conversation, his back to the desk. Maya hesitates, moral compass spinning. She shouldn't interrupt him again, but she can't afford to miss this opportunity if there's another Chicago flight. She picks up the boarding pass, studying it. "Harrison Group," it reads. "Private charter to Chicago. Last call for boarding," a voice announces over the PA system. "Gate D42. Maya looks around, confused. The gate agent is still on his phone, now walking away from the desk to speak more privately. The jetway door stands open, unattended. A few yards away, a harried-looking businessman argues with another airline employee about baggage fees. The logical part of Maya's brain tells her to put the boarding pass down and walk away. But desperation, exhaustion, and the thought of returning to her apartment to tell Layla that she missed her big chance, it all pushes her toward a decision she would never normally make. "They're expecting someone," she thinks. "I'll just ask if there's any possibility they have an extra seat. The worst they can say is no." Taking a deep breath, Maya walks toward the jetway, boarding pass in hand. No one stops her. No one even seems to notice. The momentary absence of oversight, a perfect storm of coincidence, allows her to step onto the boarding bridge. At the end of the jetway, instead of the usual commercial aircraft, she finds a gleaming private jet with Harrison Industries emblazoned on the side in sleek silver letters. A flight attendant stands at the entrance, checking something on an iPad. Maya freezes. This is clearly not a commercial flight. She should turn around now before she embarrasses herself. But just as she's about to retreat, the flight attendant looks up. "Ms. Chen?" the young woman asks, eyeing Maya expectantly. Maya begins, but is interrupted. "Thank goodness, Mr. Harrison is running late, and we were worried you wouldn't make it either." The attendant glances at the boarding pass in Maya's hand. "May I?" Before Maya can explain, the attendant takes the boarding pass, scans it with her iPad, and hands it back. "Welcome aboard. I'm Sophia. Please take any seat. We'll be taking off as soon as Mr. Harrison arrives." Maya stands paralyzed with indecision. She should speak up, explain the mistake. But the words stick in her throat as Sophia gestures her inside. The interior of the jet looks like something from a movie, all cream leather and polished wood, with just 8 large seats arranged in pairs. "Would you like something to drink while we wait?" Sophia asks. Water would be nice," Maya manages, her mouth suddenly dry. As Sophia moves toward the galley, Maya sinks into the nearest seat, heart hammering. This is crazy. She needs to explain the misunderstanding before it goes any further. But just as she's about to call Sophia back, her phone buzzes again. Another text from Layla. "Your patients are cheering you on. Mrs. Abernathy made me promise to tell you she's doing her exercises." The reminder of why this trip matters so much to her, her patients, her career, the techniques she hopes to learn, momentarily silences the voice of reason. Maybe there's been a genuine mix-up. Maybe this Ms. Chen person canceled. Maybe fate has handed her an unexpected solution. "This is insane," Maya thinks, her pulse racing. "I need to leave now." But before she can stand, the cabin door closes with a decisive click. Through the window, she sees a tall man in an impeccable suit striding confidently across the tarmac toward the plane. Even from a distance, his presence is commanding, his bearing that of someone who expects the world to bend to his will. "Mr. Harrison has arrived," Sophia announces, returning with a bottle of water. "We'll be taking off immediately." The gravity of Maya's situation hits her like a bucket of ice water. She's about to be airborne in a stranger's private jet, having committed what probably amounts to fraud. Her rational mind finally breaks through the fog of desperation. "There's been a mistake," she blurts out. "I'm not Ms. Chen, I'm Maya Johnson. I missed my commercial flight to Chicago, and I just came to ask if..." The cabin door opens, cutting off her confession. And there he stands, James Harrison, 38 years old, with dark hair touched by silver at the temples and eyes the color of a winter sea. His tailored suit probably costs more than Maya's monthly rent. His expression, as he notices her, shifts from distracted to confused to something unreadable. "You're not Vivian Chen," he states flatly. "No, sir, I'm so sorry. There's been a misunderstanding. I'll leave immediately." Maya grabs her suitcase handle, mortified. Wait! His voice stops her as effectively as a physical barrier. Who are you and how did you get on my plane? Maya swallows hard. I'm Maya Johnson. I'm a nurse at Baltimore Memorial. I was supposed to be on a commercial flight to Chicago for a medical conference, but I missed it. I came to this gate to see if there were any other options, and there was a mix-up with a boarding pass, and then everything happened so fast, and she stops, realizing she's rambling. I'm very sorry. I'll go now. James Harrison studies her for a long moment, his expression inscrutable. Then, to her surprise, the corner of his mouth quirks up slightly. A nurse, he repeats as if testing the word. Going to Chicago for a medical conference. Maya nods, clutching her suitcase like a shield. Sir, Sophia interjects, Ms. Chen called while you were en route. She's caught in traffic and won't make it. She asked if you could reschedule the meeting. James doesn't take his eyes off Maya. So my business associate isn't coming and you need to get to Chicago. A pause. Tell me, Nurse Johnson, do you make a habit of boarding random aircraft? No, sir, Maya says, her cheeks burning. This is definitely not normal behavior for me. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. A momentary lapse that got you past airport security and onto a private jet. There's something like amusement in his voice now. I'm almost impressed. Before Maya can respond, a voice comes through the intercom. Mr. Harrison, we're cleared for takeoff. Tower is asking if we're ready to proceed. James makes a decision. Sit down, Nurse Johnson. I'm sorry. Sit down. You wanted to go to Chicago. I'm going to Chicago. The seat would be empty otherwise. He moves past her to take his own seat. Unless you'd prefer to explain to airport security how you managed to board my plane without authorization. The threat is clear, though his tone remains light. Maya sinks back into her seat, speechless. I thought not, James says, fastening his seatbelt. Sophia, please inform the captain we're ready. As the engines power up, Maya grips her armrests, mind racing. What has she gotten herself into? And why would a billionaire CEO allow a complete stranger, a potential security risk, to remain on his private jet? Relax, Nurse Johnson, James says, noticing her white-knuckled grip. If I thought you were dangerous, we'd be having this conversation with federal agents present. Then why? Maya asks, finding her voice. James Harrison looks at her with an expression she can't quite decipher. Let's just say you've made an otherwise tedious day considerably more interesting. He opens his laptop. Now, tell me about this medical conference. If you're enjoying this unexpected journey so far, keep watching to see how Maya's impulsive decision leads to consequences she never could have imagined. A simple mistake is about to change both their lives forever. The jet accelerates down the runway, pressing Maya back into the luxurious leather seat. As they lift into the clouds, she finds herself in uncharted territory, both literally and figuratively. The hospital, her tiny apartment, her carefully structured life, all growing smaller below her. Ahead lies Chicago, a medical conference, and a man whose world couldn't be more different from her own. The conference, Maya says, gathering her thoughts. It's on advanced wound care techniques. I work with a lot of diabetic patients who struggle with chronic wounds. There are new approaches that could significantly improve their quality of life. James nods, apparently satisfied with her answer. Sounds important. It is, Maya responds, warming to the subject she's passionate about. Proper wound care can be the difference between recovery and amputation for some patients. And Baltimore Memorial sent you to learn these techniques? Maya's expression falters slightly. Actually, no. The hospital doesn't have funding for conference attendance for nursing staff this year. I'm paying my own way. This catches James's attention. He looks up from his laptop. You're using vacation time and personal funds for professional development? It's an investment in my patient's care, Maya says simply. Something shifts in James's assessment of her. He closes his laptop. Commendable. It's just part of the job, Maya says, uncomfortable with his scrutiny. No, James counters, it's decidedly not just part of the job. Most people do precisely what's required of them, nothing more. An awkward silence falls between them. Maya takes a sip of water, conscious of every movement under his gaze. James Harrison is undeniably attractive, in that untouchable, belongs-on-a-magazine cover way that doesn't quite seem real. But there's something else about him, too. Something sharp and assessing behind those blue eyes that makes her feel like she's being evaluated according to criteria she doesn't understand. So, she ventures, what takes you to Chicago? Merger negotiations, he replies. Harrison Industries is acquiring a medical technology company that specializes in, coincidentally enough, wound care innovations. Maya's eyes widen. Meditech solutions they're presenting at the conference. The very same. James studies her with renewed interest. Their new synthetic skin grafts are revolutionary, but their management is disorganized. With proper direction, the technology could reach patients years sooner and make Harrison Industries a fortune in the process, Maya adds without thinking. Instead of taking offense, James laughs a genuine sound that transforms his face, making him appear younger, more approachable. Precisely. I find the most successful ventures are those where profit and public good align. He leans forward slightly. Tell me, what do you know about their products? For the next 20 minutes, Maya finds herself engaged in a surprisingly technical discussion about wound care technology. James asks incisive questions that reveal a thorough understanding of the industry, occasionally making notes on his phone. You're well informed for someone who just decided to acquire the company, Maya observes. I make it a point to understand the businesses I buy, James replies. Knowledge is leverage. He sets his phone down. Your insights are valuable. You understand the practical applications in ways my analysts don't. Maya feels a flush of pride at the compliment, then immediately chides herself. Why should this man's approval matter to her? We'll be landing in approximately 30 minutes, Sophia announces, appearing with fresh drinks. Mr. Harrison, there's a message from your Chicago office. Mr. Delaney is requesting you call him immediately regarding the Meditech meeting. James sighs, taking the offered phone. Excuse me, he says to Maya, moving toward the front of the cabin for privacy. Left alone, Maya pulls out her own phone and finally texts Layla. You won't believe what happened. Tell you everything later. She deliberately keeps it vague, not quite ready to admit the situation she's gotten herself into. Through the cabin window, she watches the landscape below transition from rural to urban as they approach Chicago. The skyline rises in the distance, familiar from pictures but more impressive in person. Maya has never been to Chicago before. Her travel has been limited to bus trips to visit family in Virginia and one memorable road trip to Florida with college friends years ago. When James returns, his expression has darkened. Change of plans, he announces. The Meditech board has unexpectedly flown to Paris for a competing offer. We need to intercept them before they sign anything. Paris, Maya echoes. As in Paris, France. Unless there's another Paris hosting European venture capitalists this week, James replies dryly. He studies her for a moment. Your medical conference is in Chicago. I can have my driver take you directly there when we land. It's the sensible solution. The only reasonable solution. Maya should thank him for the ride, disembark in Chicago, and proceed with her original plans. Yet something about the resignation in his voice as he mentioned the competing offer gives her pause. These Meditech innovations, she says slowly, they could help a lot of patients. Thousands, potentially millions globally, James confirms, if developed and distributed properly. Maya takes a deep breath. And the competing offer, would it get the technology to patients as quickly? No, James says bluntly. The European firm is primarily interested in the patents. They'll shelve half the innovations that don't fit their current product line and slow-walk the rest through years of additional testing to maximize profit windows. Maya thinks of Mrs. Rodriguez, who lost 2 toes to a diabetic ulcer last year, of Mr. Williams fighting a post-surgical infection that won't heal, of dozens of patients who might benefit from advances in wound care technology. When would you return from Paris? She asks, surprising herself. James raises an eyebrow. If successful within 48 hours. Why? The most important conference sessions are on the final day, Maya says, her heart racing at the audacity of what she's considering. The first 2 days are mainly networking events and preliminary presentations. Are you suggesting I have my passport? Maya interrupts. I always carry it, my mother's influence. She believed in being prepared for unexpected opportunities. She swallows hard. If your company's acquisition means better care for patients sooner, maybe I could help. Help, James repeats, studying her with open curiosity now. How exactly would you help, Nurse Johnson? I understand the practical applications of their technology. I've seen the patient side. Maybe that perspective would be valuable in your negotiations. The words tumble out before she can reconsider. And I've never been to Paris. The last admission hangs in the air between them, revealing more about her motivations than she intended. Yes, she cares about patient outcomes, but there's something else too, a yearning for adventure, for experience, for something beyond the careful, responsible life she's always led. James considers her for a long moment. You'd be willing to fly to Paris with a man you just met, based on a conversation about medical technology and my word regarding my intentions for a company. Put that way, it sounds not just impulsive but reckless. Maya nearly backs down, but something in his expression challenges her. Yes, she says firmly, sometimes you have to trust your instincts. A slow smile spreads across James's face. Well then, Nurse Johnson, it seems we're going to Paris. He presses the intercom button. Captain, change of plans. File a new flight plan for Charles de Gaulle Airport, Paris. Yes, sir. Estimated flying time will be approximately 8 hours. We'll need to refuel. As the captain's voice fades, the full weight of Maya's decision settles over her. She's about to fly to Paris. With a billionaire she met an hour ago, it's so far outside her normal behavior that she almost doesn't recognize herself. Having second thoughts? James asks, noticing her expression. About a dozen, Maya admits with a shaky laugh. But also, no, sometimes life presents unexpected opportunities. Indeed it does, James murmurs, his gaze lingering on her face. Indeed it does. The aircraft banks changing course for a new destination. Below them, Chicago and the conference Maya has saved for months to attend slips away beneath the clouds. Ahead lies the Atlantic Ocean and beyond it, the City of Light. I should call my roommate, Maya says, reality intruding. And the hospital. I was supposed to be back for my shift the day after tomorrow. Use the satellite phone, James offers. Better reception than your cell, and don't worry about your return. I'll ensure you're back in Baltimore for your shift. As Maya makes her calls, explaining to an incredulous Layla and a surprisingly accommodating nursing supervisor that she's had a change of professional development plans, she can't help wondering what she's not seeing. People like James Harrison don't simply whisk strangers off to Paris without an agenda. Everything settled? James asks when she finishes. Yes, Maya replies. My roommate thinks I've lost my mind, but my supervisor actually sounded impressed that I'd found a networking opportunity related to the new wound care technologies. Excellent. Then I suggest you get some rest. Paris is 6 hours ahead of the East Coast. We'll be arriving in the early morning local time. As if on cue, Sophia appears with a pillow and blanket. We have an overnight kit as well, she says, handing Maya a pouch containing basic toiletries. The lavatory has a changing area if you'd like to get more comfortable. Left alone again, Maya reclines her seat, which transforms into a nearly flat bed. The luxury is almost overwhelming after years of economy-class flights wedged between strangers. She closes her eyes, certain she won't sleep a wink with her mind racing. Yet the gentle hum of the engines and the smooth flight lull her into a doze. Her last conscious thought is of how surreal it feels to be flying over the Atlantic, headed for Paris, all because she picked up the wrong boarding pass. Where are you watching from? Maya awakens to the gentle touch of sunlight on her face. For a moment she's disoriented, the plush seat, the quiet hum of engines, the unfamiliar space. Then memory floods back, the missed flight, the private jet, James Harrison, Paris. She sits up abruptly, peering out the window. Below, the French countryside unfolds in a patchwork of greens and golds, morning mist still clinging to valleys. In the distance, she can make out the sprawl of a city. Good morning, James's voice comes from across the aisle. He looks frustratingly refreshed for someone who's been on a transatlantic flight, his shirt still crisp, his hair perfectly in place. Sleep well? Surprisingly, yes. Maya smooths her rumpled blouse, suddenly self-conscious. How long until we land? About 20 minutes. There's coffee in the galley, and Sophia has prepared a light breakfast if you're hungry. As if summoned, the flight attendant appears with a tray of pastries, fruit, and coffee. We'll be landing shortly, Ms. Johnson. There's a fresh towel and a comb in the lavatory if you'd like to freshen up. Maya gratefully accepts the coffee and excuses herself to the bathroom. The face that greets her in the mirror looks both familiar and strange, same brown eyes and full lips, same short natural curls, but there's a brightness, an anticipation in her expression that's been absent for too long. You're really doing this, she whispers to her reflection. You're about to land in Paris with a billionaire CEO on his private jet. She shakes her head, still not quite believing it. Layla is never going to let you hear the end of this. When she returns to her seat more composed, James is on the phone, his tone clipped and businesslike. I need the latest valuation reports and the preliminary contract terms, he's saying. Have them sent to my suite at La Bristol and reschedule my call with Tokyo for tomorrow evening. He glances up, noticing Maya. I'll be bringing a medical consultant to the meeting. Make sure she's added to the security list. Medical consultant. Maya raises an eyebrow as he ends the call. I took the liberty of creating a cover story, James explains. The board will be more receptive if they believe you're part of my team rather than, well, a random nurse who accidentally boarded your plane, Maya supplies. A hint of a smile touches his lips. Precisely. For the duration of our time in Paris, you're a medical technology consultant I've brought to assess the practical applications of Meditech's innovations. And they'll believe that. They'll believe what I tell them to believe, James says with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to having his word accepted without question. Besides, After our conversation yesterday, you're more qualified to speak on the subject than half the people who will be in that boardroom. The plane begins its descent, pressing Maya back into her seat. Through the window, she watches as the city of light emerges from the morning haze, the winding Seine, the distinctive shape of the Eiffel Tower, the grand boulevards radiating outward like spokes on a wheel. It's beautiful, she breathes. Yes, James agrees, but when she turns, she finds him watching her, not the view. Their eyes meet briefly before he looks away. First time in Paris? First time in Europe, Maya admits. Then we should make sure it's memorable. The aircraft touches down smoothly at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Unlike the commercial terminals Maya is familiar with, they taxi to a private hangar where a sleek black car awaits on the tarmac. Your luggage? James asks as they prepare to disembark. Maya glances at her small rolling suitcase with its scuffed corners and faded tag, packed for a medical conference in Chicago, not business meetings in Paris. This is it, she says, suddenly aware of how out of place she'll look beside James's obvious wealth. If he notices her discomfort, he doesn't comment. Perfect. No need to wait for baggage claim. A driver in a dark suit opens the car door as they approach. Welcome to Paris, Mr. Harrison. Thank you, Marcel. Le Bristol, please, James replies, gesturing for Maya to enter first. The interior of the car is as luxurious as the jet, all soft leather and polished wood. As they pull away from the airport, Maya tries to absorb every detail of her surroundings, not wanting to miss a moment of this unexpected adventure. The meeting with Meditech's board is scheduled for this afternoon, James informs her. That gives us a few hours to prepare and for you to settle in. Where am I staying? Maya asks, suddenly realizing she hasn't considered the logistics. I've arranged a suite for you at Le Bristol. It's one of the best hotels in Paris, centrally located. A suite, Maya echoes faintly. That's really not necessary. I'm used to budget accommodations. James gives her an appraising look. Consider it a business expense. If you're going to consult for Harrison Industries, even temporarily, you should look the part. There it is again, that sense that there's more to his generosity than simple kindness. Maya studies his profile as he gazes out the window, trying to decipher his motives. Is this all an elaborate game to him? Some kind of amusement to break up the monotony of business deals and board meetings. The car winds through the streets of Paris, passing iconic landmarks that Maya has only seen in movies and photographs. The morning light bathes everything in a golden glow, making even ordinary buildings look magical. Despite her misgivings, excitement bubbles up inside her. The Meditech board, she says, pulling her thoughts back to the purpose of this journey. What exactly are they looking for in a buyer? James turns his attention back to her, seeming pleased by the question. Primarily the highest offer, but there's a faction, including the founder, Dr. Laurent, who care deeply about the research applications. They've developed technologies that could revolutionize treatment for burn victims and diabetic patients, but they lack the infrastructure to bring them to market efficiently. And that's where Harrison Industries comes in? Exactly. We have the distribution networks, manufacturing capabilities, and regulatory experience they need. James's expression grows more animated as he speaks, revealing a genuine passion beneath the polished exterior. With our resources behind them, their innovations could reach patients within months rather than years. Maya finds herself drawn in by his enthusiasm. So why are they considering the European offer? Venture Group Europa is offering slightly more money up front, but with restrictive terms that would essentially shelve the more experimental technologies. James frowns. It's short-sighted, but shareholders see the immediate profit, and you need to convince them to look beyond that. We need to, James corrects her. Your perspective as a medical professional who works directly with patients could be invaluable. The week catches Maya off guard. 24 hours ago, she was rushing through a hospital corridor in Baltimore. Now she's being asked to help shape a business deal that could impact medical care globally. The responsibility feels both terrifying and exhilarating. The car pulls up to an elegant stone building with a green awning bearing the name Le Bristol, Paris. A doorman in an immaculate uniform hurries to open the car door. Mademoiselle, he says with a slight bow, offering his hand to help Maya out. The lobby of Le Bristol is a vision of old-world luxury, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, plush furnishings in soft creams and golds. Maya feels conspicuously underdressed in her wrinkled travel clothes, but the staff treat her with the same deference they show James. Mr. Harrison, welcome back, the manager greets them. Your usual suite is prepared, and the connecting suite for Ms. Johnson is ready as well. Connecting suite. Maya shoots James a questioning look, which he pretends not to notice. Thank you, Philippe. Please have breakfast sent up in 30 minutes and make sure Ms. Johnson has everything she needs. Of course, sir. An elegant young woman appears to escort them to their rooms. As they cross the lobby, Maya notices the curious glances from other guests, clearly wondering who she is and what she's doing with someone like James Harrison. She straightens her shoulders, refusing to be intimidated. The elevator ascends silently to the top floor, opening directly into a private foyer. The young woman leads them to a pair of double doors. "You're sweet, Mr. Harrison," she says, opening the doors to reveal a stunning apartment-like space with views of the Parisian rooftops. "And Ms. Johnson's suite is through here." She indicates a door within James's suite that presumably connects to an adjacent room. "There must be some mistake," Maya says quickly. "I should have a separate entrance." The young woman looks confused, but Mr. Harrison specifically requested connecting suites. James intervenes smoothly. "I believe Ms. Johnson would prefer her privacy. Is there another available suite on this floor?" "Of course," the young woman replies, though she can't quite hide her surprise. "This way, please." She leads Maya to a suite 3 doors down the hallway. When the door opens, Maya has to stifle a gasp. The room is larger than her entire apartment in Baltimore, with a 4-poster bed, a sitting area with antique furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a courtyard garden. "Will this be suitable, mademoiselle?" the young woman asks. "It's perfect," Maya manages, still taking in the opulence surrounding her. "Breakfast will be served shortly. Is there anything else you require?" "No, thank you." When they're alone, Maya turns to James. "Connecting suites." He has the grace to look slightly abashed. "A presumption on my part. I apologize." "Is that how this usually works?" Maya asks, her voice steady despite the flutter of unease in her stomach. "You fly women to Paris and keep them close at hand in connecting suites?" "No," James says, his expression serious now. "That's not how this works because there is no this. You're right to call me out on it. I made arrangements without consulting you, and that was inappropriate." The direct acknowledgement of his error surprises her. Maya had expected evasion, perhaps even charm to deflect her criticism. Instead, he accepts it without excuse. "Thank you for understanding," she says finally. "I'll leave you to settle in," James says, moving toward the door. "We should leave for the Meditech offices at 1 o'clock. That gives you about 3 hours to rest and prepare." "Wait," Maya calls as he reaches for the handle. "What should I wear? I didn't exactly pack for business meetings in Paris." James pauses, considering. "I'll have something sent up, a selection of options." "I can't let you buy me clothes," Maya protests. "Consider it part of the consultant cover story," James counters. "If you're representing Harrison Industries, you should look the part." Before she can argue further, he's gone, the door closing softly behind him. Maya sinks onto the edge of the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by the rapid shifts in her reality. The mattress feels like a cloud beneath her, the sheets finer than any she's ever touched. "What are you doing, Maya Johnson?" she whispers to herself. "This isn't your world." But as she looks around the elegant suite, at the sunlight streaming through windows framing a view of Paris, she can't help the thrill that runs through her. Maybe it isn't her world, but for the next 48 hours, she gets to live in it. After a quick shower in the marble bathroom, which has more jets and settings than she can figure out how to use, Maya dons the hotel's plush robe and sits down to the breakfast that arrives precisely on schedule. Fresh croissants, fruit, yogurt, and coffee so delicious she nearly moans at the first sip. She's just finishing when there's a knock at the door. Tightening the robe, she opens it to find a young woman with several garment bags draped over her arm. "Ms. Johnson." "I have some selections from Monsieur Harrison." "Oh, please come in." The woman, who introduces herself as Celeste from the hotel's personal shopping service, efficiently hangs the garment bags in the closet and begins unveiling their contents. Maya watches in astonishment as one beautiful outfit after another emerges. "These are just some initial options," Celeste explains. "If nothing suits, we can bring more." Initial options include 3 tailored dresses, 2 pantsuits, several blouses, and a pair of shoes that Maya is afraid to ask the price of. Everything looks expensive but tasteful, no flashy logos or revealing cuts. "Monsieur Harrison provided your size, but we may need to make adjustments," Celeste says, eyeing Maya professionally. "Would you like to try them on?" For a moment, Maya hesitates. Accepting these clothes feels like crossing a line, committing to something beyond a simple business arrangement. But practically speaking, she needs appropriate attire for the meetings ahead. "Yes, please," she decides. "Let's start with this one." She points to a navy blue dress with a subtle A-line silhouette, the most conservative of the options. 30 minutes later, Maya stands before the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The dress fits perfectly, skimming her curves without being tight, the hemline falling just below her knees. The fabric is like nothing she's ever worn, a wool blend so fine it feels like silk against her skin. You have beautiful posture, Celeste comments, making a minor adjustment to the sleeve. Many women would need alterations, but this fits you comme un gant like a glove. It's lovely, Maya admits, running her hands over the material, but I'm not sure. Try the other options, Celeste encourages. You must feel comfortable for your meetings. By the time they've worked through all the selections, Maya has settled on the navy dress for today's meeting and a burgundy pantsuit for tomorrow. Celeste promises to have both pressed and ready, along with appropriate accessories. Alone again, Maya takes stock of her transformation. The dress, the elegant shoes, her natural hair freshly moisturized and defined. She looks polished, professional, like someone who belongs in a Parisian boardroom discussing million-dollar deals. Just remember, she tells her reflection, this is temporary. In 48 hours, you'll be back in scrubs at Baltimore Memorial, changing IV bags and taking vital signs. The reminder is both grounding and slightly disappointing. She's glimpsing a world she never expected to access, one of private jets and luxury hotels, of decisions that impact thousands of lives, of Parisian vistas and fine dining. But it's not her world, and James Harrison is not really her anything. He's a businessman executing a strategy, and for whatever reason, she's temporarily useful to that strategy. At precisely 1 o'clock, another knock at the door announces James's arrival. When Maya opens it, she finds him in a fresh suit, charcoal gray, with a subtle blue pinstripe that brings out the color of his eyes. His gaze travels over her, taking in the transformation. For a moment, he says nothing, and Maya fights the urge to fidget under his scrutiny. You look. He begins, then seems to reconsider his words. Professional, perfect for the meeting. Thank you, Maya replies, unsure whether to be pleased or disappointed by the business-like assessment. And thank you for the clothes. I'll reimburse you, of course. James waves away the suggestion. Consider them a consulting fee. Speaking of which, are you ready to be a medical technology expert? As ready as I'll ever be, Maya says, gathering her confidence along with the small clutch purse Celeste provided to match her outfit. As they walk through the hotel lobby, Maya is aware of the difference in how people perceive her now. The curious glances have transformed into appreciative ones, sometimes followed by whispers behind hands. In her new attire, walking beside James Harrison, she apparently makes sense to the observers. A colleague, perhaps, or a business associate. The same sleek car from this morning awaits them outside, Marcel holding the door with a respectful nod. As they settle into the backseat, James briefs Maya on what to expect. The Meditech board consists of 7 members. The founder, Dr. Laurent, is the one we need to convince. He holds a significant portion of the voting shares, and the others respect his opinion on technical matters. James hands her a tablet. Here's information on their key products and research pipelines. Maya scans the documents, recognizing many of the technologies from her reading about the conference. Their artificial skin matrices for diabetic ulcers could change everything about how we treat chronic wounds, she says, genuinely impressed. And this spray-on protective barrier for burn patients, I've read the preliminary studies. The results are remarkable. Exactly the kind of insights I need you to share, James says. The European investors see balance sheets and market projections. I want the board to understand that Harrison Industries sees the human impact as well. Maya gives him a skeptical look. Is that true? Do you really care about the human impact, or is this just a negotiating tactic? James meets her gaze directly. Both, he admits with unexpected candor. I'm a businessman, not a saint. I want this acquisition because it will be profitable. But I genuinely believe the best business decisions align profit with purpose. These technologies will help people and make money. That's sustainable innovation. There's a passion in his voice that catches Maya off guard. Behind the polished facade of wealth and power, James Harrison appears to have actual convictions about his work. The car pulls up to a modern glass building in a business district outside the city center. Meditech's Paris headquarters, James explains as they exit the vehicle. The board is meeting on the top floor. In the elevator, Maya feels a flutter of nerves. What if they ask me something I can't answer? I'm a nurse, not a medical technology expert. You know more than you think, James assures her. Speak from your experience. That's what they can't get from spreadsheets and projections. The elevator opens directly into a reception area where a woman in a crisp white blouse greets them in accented English. Mr. Harrison, welcome. The board is assembled in the conference room. She leads them down a corridor to a glass-walled room where 6 men and 1 woman sit around a large oval table. All conversation ceases as James enters, heads turning to assess the newcomers. Gentlemen, Dr. Fournier, James greets them smoothly. Thank you for making time for this meeting. May I present Maya Johnson, a medical consultant who specializes in practical applications of wound care technology. Maya summons her most professional smile, trying to project a confidence she doesn't entirely feel. It's a pleasure to meet you all. An older man with silver hair and kind eyes rises to greet them. James, welcome back to Paris, and Ms. Johnson, a pleasant surprise. We were not expecting additional representatives from Harrison Industries. Dr. Laurent, James says, shaking the man's hand warmly. Maya's insights have been invaluable in assessing the full potential of your technologies. I wanted you to hear her perspective directly. Dr. Laurent turns to Maya with genuine interest. You work with wound care patients, Ms. Johnson? I do, Maya confirms. At Baltimore Memorial Hospital, I specialize in diabetic wound management and post-surgical recovery. Excellent, Dr. Laurent says, gesturing for them to take seats. Then you understand the real-world challenges our products aim to address. For the next 2 hours, Maya finds herself engaged in the most stimulating professional discussion of her career. What begins as an intimidating business meeting evolves into a passionate exchange about patient care, technological innovation, and the practical challenges of implementing new treatment protocols. Dr. Laurent, it turns out, began his career as a physician before moving into research. His questions are incisive, focused on patient outcomes rather than profit margins. The other board members defer to his expertise on technical matters while focusing their own questions on business aspects directed at James. Throughout it all, Maya is surprised by how well she and James work together. He seamlessly creates openings for her to share her experiences, while she instinctively knows when to support his business arguments with practical examples. They function like a team that has worked together for years, not mere acquaintances thrown together by chance. Your artificial skin matrix, Maya says at one point, addressing Dr. Laurent directly, could transform outcomes for patients like Mr. Williams, who's been battling a diabetic ulcer for 14 months. He's facing amputation next month if the wound doesn't show improvement. With your technology, doctors could regenerate the damaged tissue instead of removing it. Dr. Laurent nods, clearly moved by the specific example. This is precisely why I developed the matrix. Too many patients lose limbs that could be saved with the right intervention. And Harrison Industries can ensure that intervention reaches Mr. Williams and millions like him, James adds, smoothly bringing the conversation back to the acquisition. Our manufacturing capabilities can scale production within months, not years. The meeting concludes with handshakes all around and a promise from the board to consider Harrison Industries' offer alongside the European proposal. As they leave the conference room, Dr. Laurent draws Maya aside. It was refreshing to hear from someone who understands the clinical significance of our work, he says warmly. Most acquisition discussions focus entirely on patents and profit projections. Your technologies will change lives, Maya replies simply. That should be part of any valuation. Dr. Laurent studies her for a moment, then glances at James, who is engaged in conversation with another board member. You make an interesting team, he observes. Not what I expected from Harrison Industries. Before Maya can respond, James rejoins them. Dr. Laurent, would you join us for dinner this evening? I believe we have more to discuss. I would be delighted, the older man replies. Shall we say 8 o'clock? I can recommend a restaurant near your hotel. Perfect, James agrees. As they walk back to the elevator, he gives Maya an approving nod. You were exceptional in there. Really? Maya asks, surprised by the unqualified praise. Absolutely. Laurent was practically eating out of your hand. He responds to authenticity, and you have that in abundance. The compliment warms her more than it should. As they exit the building, the late afternoon sun bathes Paris in golden light, illuminating the city's elegant architecture. We have a few hours before dinner, James says as they settle back into the car. Is there something specific you'd like to see in Paris? The question catches Maya off guard. She'd assumed they would return directly to the hotel to prepare for dinner or discuss business further. She hesitates, suddenly overwhelmed by possibilities. I've always wanted to see the Louvre. James checks his watch. We have time for a brief visit. Marcel, the Louvre, please. As the car navigates the Parisian traffic, Maya gazes out at the city she's dreamed of visiting but never thought she'd see. The elegant buildings, the tree-lined boulevards, the glimpses of the Seine, it's all more beautiful than she imagined. Thank you, she says softly, turning to James, for bringing me here, for including me in the meeting, for all of this. Something in his expression shifts, softens. You've earned it. Your contribution today was genuine and valuable. The way he looks at her in that moment with respect, perhaps even admiration, makes Maya's breath catch. There's a connection forming between them that goes beyond their unusual circumstances, and it both thrills and terrifies her. The car stops near the famous glass pyramid of the Louvre. "I'll wait here," Marcel informs them. As they approach the entrance, Maya notices the line of tourists waiting to enter. "We'll never get in. The queue must be hours long." James merely smiles and leads her to a separate entrance where he exchanges a few words with a security guard. Moments later, they're inside the vast museum, bypassing the crowds entirely. "Membership has its privileges," James explains, noticing her surprise. "Harrison Industries is a patron of the arts." The next 2 hours pass in a blur of beauty as James guides Maya through the highlights of the museum. He proves to be an unexpectedly knowledgeable companion, sharing insights about various works without being pedantic. "You know a lot about art," Maya observes as they stand before the Mona Lisa, keeping a respectful distance from the crowd of tourists jostling for photos. "My mother was an art historian," James explains. "She dragged me to every museum in Europe during my childhood summers. At the time, I complained endlessly. Now I'm grateful." It's the first personal detail he's shared, a glimpse behind the polished facade of the successful businessman. Maya finds herself wanting to know more about his childhood, his family, how he became the man standing beside her. "And your father?" she asks carefully. A shadow crosses James's face. "A businessman like me, though I've tried to improve upon his model in certain respects." There's a story there, Maya senses, but this isn't the time or place to pursue it. Instead, she returns her attention to the painting before them. "She doesn't look particularly happy, does she?" Maya remarks, studying the famous smile. "More knowing, like she has a secret." James glances from the painting to Maya, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Perhaps she does." After a moment, he checks his watch. "We should head back to the hotel to prepare for dinner." As they exit the museum, the Paris evening has descended, lights beginning to twinkle across the city. The air carries a hint of autumn crispness, mingled with the scent of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. "A brief detour if you don't mind," James says, directing her down a narrow side street. "There's something I think you'll appreciate." The detour leads them to a small patisserie with a display window full of exquisite pastries and confections that look too beautiful to eat. "Monsieur Harrison," the proprietor, a round man with a magnificent mustache, greets them effusively. "Quel plaisir de vous revoir." "Bonjour, Philippe," James responds in French that sounds fluent to Maya's untrained ear. "Je voudrais présenter mon ami à vos merveilleux desserts." The two men converse rapidly in French while Maya admires the artistry of the pastries on display. Each one is a miniature masterpiece of color and texture. "Philippe makes the best millefeuille in Paris," James tells her. "We'll take some back to enjoy before dinner." The pastry chef beams at the compliment, carefully boxing a selection of his creations. He hands the package to Maya with a wink. "Pour la belle Américaine." Back in the car, the scent of butter and sugar fills the air, making Maya's mouth water. "What did he call me?" she asks. "The beautiful American," James translates, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Philippe appreciates beauty in all its forms, pastry, art, women." "And you, what do you appreciate, Mr. Harrison?" The question slips out before Maya can consider its implications. James looks at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable in the dimming light. "Authenticity," he says finally. "It's rarer than you might think in my world." The response feels significant somehow, weighted with meaning beyond the simple words. Before Maya can explore it further, they arrive back at the hotel. "We should be ready to leave for dinner at 7:30, James says as they cross the lobby. "Dr. Laurent mentioned the restaurant is a short walk from here." At her suite door, Maya pauses, suddenly reluctant to end their time together. "Thank you for the Louvre. It was magical." "The pleasure was mine," James replies, his voice softer than usual. For a moment, he seems about to say something more, but then he simply nods. "Until dinner, then." Inside her suite, Maya finds that housekeeping has been through her few belongings neatly arranged, fresh flowers placed on the writing desk, the burgundy pantsuit for tomorrow pressed and hanging in the closet. The luxury still feels surreal, like a dream from which she'll soon awaken. As she prepares for dinner, selecting a simple pearl necklace from among the accessories Celeste provided, Maya finds herself humming softly. Despite the strangeness of her situation, despite the knowledge that this interlude in Paris is temporary, she feels more alive than she has in years. In 48 hours, she'll return to her real life in Baltimore. But for now, she's in Paris, wearing a beautiful dress, about to dine with a brilliant medical researcher and a billionaire CEO who looks at her like she's something precious and unexpected. For tonight, at least, Maya Johnson is living a fairy tale. If you're enjoying Maya and James's unexpected journey so far, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Where will their Parisian adventure lead them? Dinner with Dr. Laurent proves to be as intellectually stimulating as the afternoon's meeting. The restaurant, a small, elegant establishment hidden on a side street near the hotel, offers exquisite French cuisine served in an intimate setting of soft lighting and muted conversations. Dr. Laurent, relaxed away from the boardroom, shares stories of his early research days and the patients who inspired his innovations. Maya finds herself drawn into detailed discussions about wound care protocols and the challenges of hospital implementation. Throughout the meal, she's aware of James watching her not with the assessing gaze of a businessman evaluating an asset, but with something warmer, more personal. "You have a gift for explaining complex medical concepts, Ms. Johnson," Dr. Laurent observes as they finish their main course. "Have you considered teaching?" "Call me Maya, please," she replies. "And yes, I actually do teach occasionally, training new nurses at Baltimore Memorial. I find great satisfaction in it. Yet you've remained in direct patient care rather than moving into education full-time." "I need the connection with patients," Maya explains. "Their stories, their progress, it grounds my work in reality." Dr. Laurent nods approvingly. "This is precisely what I've tried to explain to the venture capitalists. Medical innovation must be driven by patient needs, not market projections. Harrison Industries understands this balance," James interjects smoothly. "We evaluate investments based on both financial returns and positive impact." "So you claim," Dr. Laurent says with a wry smile, "yet the reputation of your company under your father's leadership was quite different." An uncomfortable silence falls over the table. Maya glances at James, noting the tension in his jaw. "My father had his methods," James says carefully. "I have mine." "Indeed," Dr. Laurent murmurs, "and that distinction interests me greatly." He turns to Maya. "Tell me, my dear, what is your impression of Mr. Harrison as a potential steward of my life's work?" The direct question takes Maya by surprise. She looks between the two men, aware that her answer carries weight beyond this dinner conversation. "I've known Mr. Harrison for less than 48 hours, she begins honestly. "But in that time, I've observed someone who listens carefully, asks insightful questions, and genuinely seems to value the human impact of business decisions." She pauses, choosing her next words with care. "He could have prepared for your meeting with market analyses and profit projections alone. Instead, he sought out the perspective of someone who works directly with the patients your technology could help. That tells me something about his priorities." Dr. Laurent studies her face, then nods slowly. "A fair assessment, and refreshingly candid." He turns to James. "Your father would have brought lawyers and financial analysts. You brought a nurse with practical experience, an interesting evolution." James's expression remains neutral, but Maya notices his shoulders relax slightly. "My father built a successful company. I'm trying to build a better one." "We shall see," Dr. Laurent says, lifting his wine glass. "To evolution, then." As they clink glasses, Maya feels the weight of unspoken histories and expectations surrounding their simple dinner. There are currents here she doesn't fully understand, between James and his father's legacy, between Dr. Laurent and his life's work, between the business world and the patients whose lives hang in the balance. After dessert, a delicate creme brulee that Maya savors with closed eyes, Dr. Laurent bids them good night with a promise to convey his impressions to the board before tomorrow's vote. "I believe we've made progress," James says as they walk back to the hotel through the lamplit streets of Paris. Laurent seemed receptive. "He's still weighing his options," Maya observes. "He wants to believe you're different from your father, but he's cautious." James glances at her with surprise. "You picked up on that?" "It wasn't subtle," Maya says with a small smile. "What happened with your father's company that makes Dr. Laurent so wary?" James is quiet for several steps, and Maya thinks he might not answer. When he finally speaks, his voice is measured, controlled. "Harrison Industries under my father's leadership was known for aggressive acquisitions. Buy promising companies, strip them for valuable assets, discard the rest." His face is unreadable in the shadows between streetlights. "Efficient from a profit perspective, less so for innovation or human benefit. And you're different." "I'm trying to be." There's a rawness in his admission that catches at Maya's heart. "My father built an empire. I'm attempting to give it purpose beyond wealth accumulation." They walk in silence for a moment, the sounds of Parisian nightlife creating a gentle backdrop to their conversation. A couple passes them, arms entwined, laughing softly together. A street musician plays a melancholy tune on an accordion. "What about you?" James asks suddenly. "What led you to nursing?" Maya considers the question, recognizing it as both a genuine inquiry and a desire to shift focus from his own revelations. My grandmother, she says. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 7. She was diagnosed with diabetes when I was in high school, and I became her primary caregiver. Watching the home health nurses who visited her, their knowledge, their compassion, I knew that's what I wanted to do. She must be proud of you. She passed away my second year of nursing school, Maya says quietly. But yes, I think she would be. Without warning, James reaches for her hand, his fingers warm against hers in the cool evening air. The gesture is simple, comforting, yet it sends a current of awareness through Maya's body. I'm sorry about your grandmother, he says, and your parents. Thank you. Maya allows her hand to remain in his as they continue walking. What about your parents? Are they still? My mother died when I was 12, cancer. His voice is level, but his fingers tighten slightly around hers. My father passed 3 years ago, heart attack at his desk, working until the very end naturally. I'm sorry, Maya says, understanding now some of the shadows she's glimpsed behind his confident exterior. They've reached the hotel, its elegant facade illuminated against the night sky. At the entrance, James releases her hand, and Maya feels the loss of contact like a physical absence. Would you like a nightcap? He asks. The hotel bar makes an excellent cognac. Maya hesitates. The invitation feels weighted with possibility. The sensible nurse from Baltimore would politely decline, return to her room, and prepare for tomorrow's meeting. But the woman who boarded a private jet on impulse, who flew to Paris with a stranger, who wore a designer dress to a business meeting, that woman might say yes. Actually, she says, making a decision, I still have those pastries from Philippe's shop. They'd pair nicely with cognac, don't you think? Something like surprise, followed by pleasure, crosses James's face. I think that sounds perfect. In Maya's suite, they settle on the small balcony overlooking the hotel's inner courtyard. The night air carries the faint scent of flowers from the garden below. A waiter delivers cognac, the amber liquid glowing in crystal glasses. Maya unwraps the pastries, delicate layers of pastry, cream, and fruit that look almost too beautiful to eat. As she hands one to James, their fingers brush, and that same awareness from earlier flickers between them. To unexpected journeys, James says, raising his glass. To boarding the wrong plane, Maya responds with a smile, touching her glass to his. The cognac is smooth and warming, its complex flavors complementing the sweetness of the pastry. They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, the Parisian night enfolding them in its gentle embrace. When did you know you wanted to follow in your father's footsteps? Maya asks eventually. In business, I mean. James considers the question, swirling the cognac in his glass. I'm not sure I ever made a conscious decision. It was always assumed. The Harrison heir, groomed from childhood to take over the empire. A shadow crosses his face. My father had my entire life mapped out before I could walk. And you never rebelled, never wanted something different. Oh, I rebelled, James says with a dry laugh. Spectacularly, in fact, but that's a story for another time. He takes another sip of cognac. The truth is, I'm good at what I do. I understand business, markets, human motivation, but for years it felt hollow. Just accumulating wealth for its own sake. What changed? I did, he says simply. Or rather, I decided to change the company's direction, use our resources and influence to support innovations that actually improve lives. He looks at her directly now, his eyes reflecting the soft light from the room behind them. The Meditech acquisition isn't just another business deal, it's part of a larger vision. Maya believes him, she realizes. Despite her initial skepticism about his motives, there's an authenticity to his passion that can't be feigned. It's never too late to redefine your purpose, she says softly. Is that what you did when you became a nurse? In a way, Maya acknowledges. After my grandmother died, I could have chosen a different path, but nursing gave me a way to honor her memory and make a tangible difference in people's lives. You're remarkable, Maya Johnson, James says suddenly, his voice low and intense. Do you know that? The compliment catches her off guard, warming her more than the cognac. I'm just a nurse from Baltimore who accidentally boarded your plane. No, James shakes his head. There's nothing just about you. You speak your mind. You care deeply about your patients. You took a chance on a complete stranger and flew to Paris on a moment's notice. He leans forward slightly. Do you have any idea how rare that kind of authenticity is in my world? The air between them seems to thicken, charged with something Maya is afraid to name. James is looking at her with an intensity that makes her heart race, and she knows they're approaching a precipice. James, she begins, not sure what she wants to say, only that something needs to be said. But he's already setting down his glass and standing up. It's getting late. We both need rest before tomorrow's meeting. The sudden shift leaves Maya disoriented. Had she misread the moment? Misinterpreted the warmth in his eyes, the connection she thought was building between them? Of course, she says, rising as well, working to keep disappointment from her voice. Tomorrow is important. At the door, James pauses, turning back to her. Maya, he stops, seeming to reconsider whatever he was about to say. Thank you for this evening, for your insights with Laurent, for everything. You're welcome, she replies, wishing she could understand what's happening behind those blue eyes, what thoughts he's keeping to himself. After he's gone, Maya remains standing in the doorway for a long moment. The suite suddenly feels too large, too empty. Outside, Paris continues its nighttime symphony, distant traffic, faint music, the occasional burst of laughter from late-night revelers. She moves to the bathroom, removing the pearl necklace and placing it carefully on the marble countertop. As she studies her reflection, the same face she's known all her life, now framed by the luxury of a Parisian hotel, Maya acknowledges the truth she's been trying to ignore. She's falling for James Harrison. It's absurd, of course. They've known each other for barely 36 hours. He lives in a world so removed from hers they might as well be different species. In another day, she'll return to Baltimore, to her nursing shifts and modest apartment, while he continues his global business dealings and multi-million-dollar negotiations. And yet, there had been moments today when the distance between their worlds seemed to disappear, when they walked through the Louvre, discussing art and history, when they worked together in the Medi-Tech meeting, seamlessly complementing each other's approaches. When he reached for her hand in the darkened street, a simple gesture of human connection. Get a grip, Maya, she mutters to her reflection. This isn't a fairy tale. But as she slips into the impossibly soft hotel bed, Paris twinkling beyond her window, Maya can't quite convince her heart to listen to reason. Morning arrives with gentle sunlight filtering through the curtains and the distant sounds of Paris awakening to a new day. Maya stretches luxuriously in the cloud-like bed, momentarily disoriented before remembering where she is. Paris. The Harrison Industries acquisition. James. A glance at her phone shows a message from him, sent an hour ago. Breakfast in the Garden restaurant whenever you're ready. Important updates on Medi-Tech. Maya showers quickly, the multiple jets of the elegant bathroom still somewhat mystifying, and dons the burgundy pantsuit that Celeste selected yesterday. The rich color complements her warm brown skin, and the cut is both professional and flattering. Looking in the mirror, Maya barely recognizes herself, not just because of the expensive clothes, but because of the confidence in her posture, the brightness in her eyes. Paris agrees with her, it seems. Or perhaps it's not Paris at all, but the company she's keeping. In the hotel's garden restaurant, she finds James at a corner table, laptop open before him, phone pressed to his ear. He's wearing a navy suit today, crisp white shirt open at the collar, no tie yet. The morning sunlight catches in his hair, highlighting the silver at his temples. When he sees her approaching, something changes in his expression, a softening, a warmth that makes her heart skip. I'll call you back, he says into the phone, ending the call and standing as she reaches the table. Good morning, you look. He pauses, his gaze taking in the burgundy suit, very professional. Thank you, Maya replies, wondering what he'd been about to say instead. You mentioned updates? Yes. James pulls out a chair for her, then resumes his own seat. Coffee, please. A waiter appears instantly to pour rich, dark coffee into delicate china cups. James waits until they're alone again before continuing. The European firm has increased their offer, he says, his expression serious. Substantially, Maya's heart sinks. Does that mean they'll get the company? Not necessarily. Money isn't the only factor. James takes a sip of his coffee. Dr. Laurent called me this morning. He was impressed with you with us last night. He's advocating for Harrison Industries' offer despite the financial difference. That's good, isn't it? It's promising, James acknowledges. But Laurent is just one vote. The board meets at 11 to make their final decision. Maya nods, absorbing the information. What can we do until then? Nothing, unfortunately. It's in their hands now. James closes his laptop. Which means we have the morning free. Is there something else you'd like to see in Paris before we potentially have to return to celebrate or drown our sorrows? The casual way he includes her in both scenarios, celebration or disappointment, sends a warm current through Maya's chest. They're a team now, it seems, united in this shared purpose. Actually, she says, I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. James smiles, a genuine expression that transforms his face. Then the Eiffel Tower it is. After a breakfast of flaky croissants and perfect omelets, they set out into the Parisian morning. The day is clear and crisp, ideal for sightseeing. To Maya's surprise, James dismisses the waiting car. It's within walking distance, he explains, and Paris is best experienced on foot when possible. They stroll along the Seine, the famous river glinting in the sunlight. James proves to be a knowledgeable guide, pointing out landmarks and sharing historical anecdotes. Maya finds herself increasingly drawn to this side of him, thoughtful, engaged, far removed from the calculating businessman she first imagined him to be. "How often do you come to Paris?" she asks as they cross a bridge adorned with padlocks, love locks, James explains, placed by couples symbolizing their enduring commitment. "A few times a year for business," he replies, "less often for pleasure." "And which is this trip, business or pleasure?" The question escapes before Maya can consider its implications. James glances at her, a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. "It began as business," he says carefully, "but I'm finding the lines somewhat blurred." The admission hovers between them, neither quite ready to explore its full meaning. They continue walking, the Eiffel Tower growing larger as they approach, its iconic silhouette rising against the blue sky. "It's more impressive in person," Maya breathes as they reach the Champ de Mars, the expansive green space surrounding the tower. "Photos don't capture the scale." "Would you like to go up?" James asks. "The view of Paris from the top is unparalleled." "Absolutely." Once again, James's status allows them to bypass the long tourist queues. In the elevator ascending the tower, Maya stands close to him, their shoulders almost touching in the crowded space. She's acutely aware of his presence, the subtle scent of his cologne, the steady rhythm of his breathing. The observation deck opens before them, offering a panoramic vista of Paris in all its glory. Maya moves to the railing, awestruck by the beauty spread below, the winding Seine, the grand boulevards, the distinctive landmarks she's only seen in books and films. "It's breathtaking," she says, drinking in the view. "Yes," James agrees, but when she turns, she finds him looking not at the city, but at her. The intensity in his gaze sends a shiver through her that has nothing to do with the elevation. For a suspended moment they stand there, the bustling tourists around them fading into background noise. Something is building between them, a tension, a possibility, a connection that defies the brevity of their acquaintance. Then James's phone rings, shattering the moment. He checks the screen, his expression turning serious. "It's my office in Chicago. I need to take this." Maya nods, turning back to the view as he steps away to answer the call. The interruption gives her a moment to collect herself, to rein in the emotions threatening to overwhelm her common sense. Whatever she's feeling for James Harrison, she reminds herself, cannot lead anywhere. Their worlds are too different, their lives too separate. In 24 hours, this Parisian interlude will end, and reality will reassert itself. When James returns, his expression is controlled, professional once more. "That was my legal team. The Meditech board is convening earlier than expected. We need to head back to the hotel." The shift in his demeanor is like a door closing, and Maya feels a pang of disappointment. The connection she thought they were building seems suddenly tenuous, perhaps even imagined on her part. "Of course," she says, matching his businesslike tone. "We shouldn't keep them waiting." In the elevator descending the tower, they stand slightly apart, the easy companionship of earlier replaced by a polite distance. Maya wonders what changed. Was it the phone call? Something else? Or had she simply misread the situation, seeing what she wanted to see rather than what was truly there? Back at street level, James flags down a taxi rather than walking back. "Faster," he explains briefly. In the confined space of the cab, the silence between them grows uncomfortable. Maya gazes out the window, watching Paris slide by, trying to memorize every detail for when she returns to Baltimore. "Maya," James says suddenly, his voice low, "I apologize if I seem distracted. The call from Chicago raised some complications with the acquisition." "You don't need to explain," Maya assures him. "This is a business trip for you, I understand that." James looks as if he wants to say more, but instead simply nods, turning his attention to his phone, where messages have apparently been accumulating. At the hotel, they find a representative from Meditech waiting in the lobby, a younger man in a sleek suit who introduces himself as Dr. Lawrence's assistant. "The board has reached a preliminary decision," he informs them. "Dr. Lawrence requests your presence at the office immediately." In the car to Meditech headquarters, James briefs Maya on the possible scenarios they might face. His voice is controlled, professional, focused entirely on the business at hand. The man who walked with her along the Seine, who looked at her with such intensity atop the Eiffel Tower, seems to have vanished, replaced by the CEO of Harrison Industries. Maya tells herself this is for the best. It's a needed reminder of reality, of the temporary nature of their connection. Yet she can't help feeling a sense of loss, of opportunities slipping away. At Meditech, they're escorted directly to the boardroom where Dr. Laurent and the other board members await. The atmosphere is formal, tense with unspoken expectations. "Mr. Harrison, Ms. Johnson," Dr. Laurent greets them. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." "The pleasure is ours," James replies smoothly. "We're eager to hear the board's decision." Dr. Laurent glances around at his colleagues, receiving subtle nods of confirmation. After careful consideration of both offers Harrison Industries and venture group Europa's, the board has decided to proceed with Harrison Industries, contingent upon certain conditions. A ripple of relief passes through Maya. They've succeeded. The medical innovations will be developed under James's direction, potentially helping thousands of patients like those she treats every day. James maintains his composure, though Maya notices the slight relaxation of his shoulders. "We're gratified by your confidence, Dr. Laurent. What conditions do you propose?" "Three key stipulations," the older man says, sliding a document across the table. "First, Meditech's research division remains intact, with guaranteed funding for 5 years. Second, the current leadership team stays in place for a minimum of 3 years. And third," he pauses, his gaze shifting to Maya, "we request that Ms. Johnson serve as a liaison between clinical implementation and product development." The last condition lands like a thunderclap in Maya's ears. "I'm sorry," she says, finding her voice. "Could you clarify that?" "Your clinical perspective is exactly what Meditech needs," Dr. Laurent explains. "A voice directly from patient care guiding our innovations. Mr. Harrison has found a rare talent in you. We'd like that talent to continue informing our work." Maya turns to James, searching his face for some explanation, but his expression reveals nothing beyond professional interest. "Dr. Laurent," he says carefully, "while I appreciate your recognition of Ms. Johnson's expertise, she has commitments in Baltimore. Her position at Harrison Industries was never intended to be permanent." The words, though factually accurate, sting more than Maya expects. A reminder that her role in this scenario was always temporary, a convenient fiction. Dr. Laurent frowns. "I was under the impression that Ms. Johnson was a valued member of your team." "She is," James says quickly, "but her primary commitment is to her patients at Baltimore Memorial." "I see." Dr. Laurent turns his attention directly to Maya. "Ms. Johnson, would you consider a consulting arrangement, quarterly visits to our development team, video conferences as needed? We would, of course, compensate you appropriately for your time and expertise." Maya's mind races. A consulting position with Meditech would be an incredible opportunity, professionally stimulating, financially rewarding, and potentially beneficial for her patients. But it would also mean an ongoing connection to James, a constant reminder of this Parisian interlude and the feelings she's trying to suppress. "It's a generous offer," she says carefully. "May I have some time to consider it?" "Of course," Dr. Laurent agrees. "Shall we say 24 hours? The rest of the acquisition can proceed in the meantime." James nods. "That seems reasonable. Maya, are you comfortable with that timeline?" The use of her first name after hours of professional distance sends a small thrill through her. "Yes, that works for me." The remainder of the meeting focuses on technical details of the acquisition, timelines, personnel transitions, public announcements. Throughout it all, Maya feels James's occasional glances, but when she meets his eyes, his expression remains unreadable. By the time they leave Meditech headquarters, afternoon has faded into early evening. The Parisian sky is painted in shades of pink and gold, the air carrying a slight chill. "Congratulations," Maya says as they settle into the car. "You got the company." "We got the company," James corrects her. "Your input was instrumental," Laurent made that clear. "Hence the consulting offer," Maya says, unable to keep a note of uncertainty from her voice. James is quiet for a moment, looking out at the passing cityscape. "You should consider it carefully," he says finally. "It's a significant opportunity. Your expertise could help shape technologies that will benefit countless patients." "And what about you?" Maya asks, the question escaping before she can reconsider. "Where do you fit in this scenario?" James turns to her, his expression serious. "Maya, I won't pretend that I haven't felt something developing between us, but I need to be clear about the realities of my life. I run a global corporation. I travel constantly. I work 18-hour days. I'm not," he pauses, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I'm not good at personal connections. My track record in that area is less than impressive." The frank assessment lands like a weight in Maya's chest. Not a rejection exactly, but a preemptive boundary setting. A warning. "I wasn't asking for promises, James," she says quietly. "Just honesty." "Then honestly," he meets her gaze directly. "You've awakened something in me I thought was dormant, but I'm not sure I have the right to act on it. Your life in Baltimore is stable, meaningful. You have purpose, connections. I would be selfish to disrupt that for whatever this is between us." The admission hangs in the air between them, both more and less than Maya had hoped for. He feels something for her, that much is clear. But he's already decided it can't go anywhere. Shouldn't that be my decision too? She asks. Before James can respond, the car pulls up to the hotel. Marcel opens the door, unwittingly interrupting their conversation at its most crucial point. "We're hosting a celebration dinner for the Meditech board tonight," James says as they cross the lobby. 8 o'clock in the hotel's private dining room. I understand if you'd prefer not to attend, given. He leaves the sentence unfinished. "I'll be there," Maya says firmly. "This is a professional victory worth celebrating for both of us." James nods, relief evident in his expression. "Until tonight, then." At her suite door, they pause, the unfinished conversation from the car hanging between them. For a moment, Maya thinks James might reach for her, might bridge the careful distance he's maintained all day. Instead, he simply says, "The burgundy suits you," before turning toward his own suite. Inside her room, Maya sinks onto the edge of the bed, emotions churning. In less than 48 hours, she's experienced more dramatic shifts than in the previous year of her life. From missing her flight to Chicago, to boarding a private jet by mistake, to walking the streets of Paris with a man who both attracts and bewilders her. And now a job offer that could change the trajectory of her career, bringing her back to Paris, back into James's orbit, on a regular basis. Is it an opportunity she wants to pursue? Or would it simply prolong an attachment that can lead nowhere? As Maya prepares for the celebration dinner, she knows she needs to make decisions. About the consulting position, about her feelings for James, about what she wants from the remaining hours of this Parisian interlude. But for now, she focuses on the immediate task, putting on the elegant black dress Celeste included among her selections, applying subtle makeup, preparing to represent Harrison Industries one final time. In the mirror, her reflection shows a woman transformed not just by the designer dress and carefully applied makeup, but by something deeper, an awakening to possibilities beyond the careful boundaries she's set for herself. Tonight, Maya decides she will allow herself to fully inhabit this fairy tale, to celebrate their professional victory, to enjoy the company of brilliant minds in a beautiful setting. Tomorrow will bring decisions and departures, reality reasserting itself. But tonight belongs to Paris, to champagne and candlelight, to the woman she glimpses in the mirror, confident, elegant, alive with possibility. And perhaps, if she's brave enough, tonight also belongs to the unfinished conversation with James Harrison, the man who awakened something in her too, something she thought she'd set aside in favor of practical concerns and professional dedication. Sometimes, Maya reminds herself as she steps into the hallway, life presents unexpected opportunities. The real question is whether she has the courage to seize them. Before you see how this unfolds, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the conclusion of Maya and James's Parisian adventure. What would you do in Maya's position? Let us know in the comments. The hotel's private dining room glows with soft lighting, crystal and silver when Maya enters. Several members of the Meditech board are already present, champagne flutes in hand. Dr. Laurent breaks away from a conversation to greet her warmly. "Ms. Johnson." "The woman of the hour," he says, kissing her cheeks in the European fashion. "You look stunning." "Thank you," Maya replies, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "Though I hardly think I'm the reason we're celebrating. On the contrary, James confirmed what I suspected. Your perspective was crucial in shaping Harrison Industries' approach to the acquisition." The older man studies her with kind eyes. "Have you considered our offer?" "I'm still weighing my options," Maya says diplomatically. "It's a significant change to consider." "Of course," Dr. Laurent nods, "but consider this: talent like yours shouldn't be confined to a single hospital. The technologies you help develop at Meditech could benefit patients worldwide." It's a compelling argument, one that resonates with Maya's deepest motivations as a healthcare provider. Before she can respond, however, a subtle shift in the room's energy draws her attention to the doorway. James has arrived, immaculate in a black tuxedo that highlights the breadth of his shoulders and the lean strength of his frame. He scans the room, his expression composed until his gaze lands on Maya. Something flickers in his eyes, then appreciation, warmth, perhaps even hunger before his professional mask returns. He makes his way to her side, greeting Dr. Laurent with a handshake. "I see you've already found the guest of honor," he says, his voice light. "Indeed," Dr. Laurent agrees. "I was just reminding Ms. Johnson of the global impact she could have through our consulting position." "A compelling case," James acknowledges, his eyes meeting Maya's briefly before turning back to the older man. "Though I suspect Baltimore Memorial would be reluctant to lose her, even part-time." Every institution must sometimes share its treasures for the greater good, Dr. Lawrence says with a smile. Now, if you'll excuse me, I should greet the rest of my board. As he moves away, Maya finds herself alone with James for the first time since their interrupted conversation in the car. The air between them seems charged with unspoken words. "You look beautiful," James says quietly, his eyes taking in the black dress, the simple diamond studs in her ears, another loan from the hotel's concierge service. "Thank you," Maya replies, feeling a flush of pleasure at the compliment. "The tuxedo suits you as well." A hint of a smile touches his lips. "Professional armor," he says, a note of self-deprecation in his voice. "Makes it easier to play the role expected of me." "And what role is that?" "Tonight, the triumphant CEO securing a valuable acquisition." He takes a sip of champagne, though in truth, I find I'm more interested in another role entirely. Before Maya can ask what he means, they're interrupted by the arrival of more Meditech board members, eager to discuss the details of the acquisition. James slips seamlessly into business mode, his charm and focus undeniable as he outlines his vision for the company's future. Throughout dinner, an exquisite 7-course French meal served with perfectly paired wines, Maya observes James in his element, commanding the table with quiet authority, building bridges with potential skeptics, reinforcing alliances with supporters. He's brilliant at this, she realizes, this delicate dance of power and persuasion. Yet occasionally, when conversation flows around them, he turns to her with comments meant only for her ears, observations about the other guests, private jokes, questions about her opinion on various topics. These moments feel like glimpses behind the professional facade, reminders of the connection they began building during their walks through Paris. After dessert, as coffee and cognac are served, Dr. Laurent taps his glass for attention. "A toast," he announces, rising to his feet. "To new beginnings. May this partnership between Meditech and Harrison Industries bring healing to many and prosperity to all." Glasses are raised around the table, a chorus of "Santé" ringing out. Under the table, Maya feels James's knee brush against hers. Whether by accident or design, she can't tell, but the brief contact sends a current of awareness through her body. As the evening progresses, conversations fragment into smaller groups. Maya finds herself engaged in a fascinating discussion with one of Meditech's research scientists about advances in cellular regeneration. When she glances up, she notices James watching her from across the room, an unguarded expression of admiration on his face before he turns back to his own conversation. The party begins to wind down around 11, board members bidding goodnight with promises of future collaboration. Soon only Maya, James, and Dr. Laurent remain, enjoying a final glass of cognac. "A successful evening," Dr. Laurent observes. "I believe this partnership will prove fruitful for all concerned." He rises, setting down his empty glass. "And now this old man must seek his bed. Ms. Johnson, I look forward to hearing your decision about our offer. Regardless of your choice, it has been a genuine pleasure making your acquaintance." "The pleasure was mine," Maya replies sincerely. "Your work will help countless patients." With a final handshake for James and a gallant kiss to Maya's hand, Dr. Laurent departs, leaving them alone in the elegant dining room. The silence that falls feels weighted with possibility. "Would you like to take a walk?" James asks suddenly. "The night is beautiful and Paris is at its most magical after dark." The invitation surprises and delights Maya. "I'd like that very much." Outside, the Parisian night embraces them in cool, fragrant air. The street lamps cast pools of golden light on the ancient cobblestones, and in the distance, the Eiffel Tower sparkles with its hourly light show. They walk without speaking at first, the night air clearing away the formality of the dinner party. Maya slips off her high heels, carrying them in one hand as she feels the centuries-old stones beneath her feet. "Careful," James cautions, offering his arm for support. "These old streets can be treacherous." Maya accepts, placing her hand in the crook of his elbow, acutely aware of his solid presence beside her. "Where are we going?" "There's a place I want to show you," he says, guiding her down a narrow side street. "A different view of the city." They emerge onto one of the bridges spanning the Seine, the Pont des Arts. James tells her, famous for the love locks that once covered its railings before their weight threatened the structure's integrity. "They removed most of them," he explains, leading her to the center of the bridge. "But people still come here for the view. And what a view it is. The river flows dark and mysterious below them, reflecting the lights of Paris like a mirror of stars. Historic buildings line the banks, their illuminated facades creating a tableau of timeless beauty. "It's perfect," Maya breathes, drinking in the scene before her. "Yes," James agrees, but when she turns, she finds him looking at her rather than the view. The intensity in his gaze steals her breath. "Maya," he says, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" she asks, heart suddenly racing. James takes both her hands in his, facing her fully now. "These past 2 days have been revelatory for me. You've shown me a perspective I've been missing not just professionally, but personally." "James, please let me finish." His thumbs trace gentle circles on her palms. "I've spent my adult life focused on building and expanding Harrison Industries, believing that was the legacy I needed to create. But being with you, seeing how deeply you care about your patients, how your work directly impacts individual lives, it's made me question my priorities." Maya hardly dares breathe, afraid to break the spell of his confession. "I meant what I said earlier about not being good at personal connections," James continues. "My work has always come first. But these 2 days with you," he shakes his head slightly as if in wonder. "You've awakened something in me, Maya, something I'm not ready to let go of when you return to Baltimore." The words she's both hoped for and feared hang in the night air between them. Maya feels suspended on the edge of a precipice, both thrilled and terrified by what lies ahead. "What are you saying, James?" she asks, needing clarity before she can respond. "I'm saying I want to explore this connection between us." His eyes hold hers, unwavering now. "I don't know what form it might take, given our different lives, but I know I'm not ready for it to end tomorrow when your plane leaves." Maya's heart soars even as her practical mind raises cautions. "Our worlds are very different," she says softly. "Your life is private jets and global business. Mine is hospital rounds and modest apartments." "Maybe that's exactly why we complement each other," James suggests. "You ground me in what matters most, the human impact of business decisions. And perhaps I can show you possibilities beyond what you've considered for yourself." He releases one of her hands to gently touch her cheek. "I'm not asking for promises, Maya, just openness to possibility, to seeing where this might lead." The night air feels electric around them, the city of Paris a romantic backdrop to this moment of choice. Maya knows that whatever she decides will change the course of her life, whether she embraces this unexpected connection or returns to the safety of her familiar world. "I'm afraid," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of what?" "Of falling for someone whose life is so different from mine, of building hopes on a foundation that might not support them." She meets his gaze directly. "Of becoming just another brief distraction in your complicated life." James winces slightly at her honesty but doesn't look away. "Fair concerns," he acknowledges. "I can't offer guarantees, but I can promise you this: what I feel for you is not a passing interest. You've touched something essential in me, something I didn't know was missing until you accidentally boarded my plane." A smile tugs at Maya's lips at the reminder of how their unlikely story began. "That was quite the happy accident." "The best mistake of my life," James agrees, his own smile emerging. And in that moment, standing on a bridge in Paris with the man who's turned her world upside down in the span of 48 hours, Maya makes her decision. She rises on tiptoe, closing the distance between them, and presses her lips to his. The kiss begins gently, a question, an exploration. But when James's arms encircle her, pulling her closer, it transforms into something deeper, a hunger, a recognition, a homecoming neither expected to find. When they finally part, both slightly breathless, the city seems to shimmer around them as if Paris itself approves of this unlikely romance. "I should warn you," Maya says, her arms still around his neck. "I'm not easily impressed by wealth or status. If we're going to explore this connection, I need to know the real James Harrison, not just the CEO." "I'm counting on that," he replies, resting his forehead against hers. "The first person in years who seems to see beyond the Harrison name and fortune." "And the consulting position with Meditech?" Maya asks, practical concerns intruding. "Was that your idea, a way to keep me connected to your world?" James shakes his head. "Laurent came up with that entirely on his own, though I can't say I'm opposed to the idea of you visiting Paris regularly." His expression grows more serious. "But that decision needs to be based on your professional interests, not this." He gestures between them. "Whatever happens between us should be separate from your career choices." The thoughtfulness of his response reassures Maya. He's not trying to control her or reshape her life to fit his needs. He's offering a genuine exploration of possibilities with respect for her autonomy. "Then I think," she says slowly, "that I need to consider the consulting position on its own merits, and us. Well, we'll need to take that one step at a time." "I can work with that," James says, his smile returning. He glances at his watch. "It's getting late. We should head back to the hotel." As they walk hand in hand through the Parisian night, Maya feels a sense of possibility expanding within her. The practical nurse from Baltimore hasn't disappeared. She still considers consequences, still plans carefully. But now she's making room for adventure, for unexpected joy, for the thrilling uncertainty of a connection that defies the odds. Back at La Bristol, they pause outside Maya's suite, the air between them charged with new awareness, new intentions. James traces a gentle finger along her cheek. "Thank you," he says softly. "For what?" "For boarding the wrong plane," he replies with a smile. "For taking a chance on a stranger, for showing me what I've been missing while focused on spreadsheets and acquisitions." Maya leans into his touch, her heart full. "Thank you for not having me arrested for trespassing on your private jet." James laughs, the sound warm in the quiet hallway. "Best security breach of my life." When he kisses her again, it feels like both a promise and a question, a beginning rather than an ending, despite the flight that will take Maya back to Baltimore tomorrow afternoon. "Good night, Maya Johnson," James whispers against her lips. "Dream of Paris." "Good night, James Harrison," she replies, stepping reluctantly from his embrace. "Dream of me." Inside her suite, Maya moves to the window, gazing out at the city of lights spread before her. 48 hours ago, she was rushing through Baltimore Memorial Hospital, focused on catching a flight to Chicago. Now she stands in Paris, her heart opening to possibilities she never imagined, her life poised for changes she couldn't have foreseen, all because she boarded the wrong plane. Sometimes, Maya thinks as she watches the Eiffel Tower sparkle in the distance, the best journeys begin with a mistake. And sometimes, the most meaningful connections form when we least expect them, with people we never imagined would enter our lives. Tomorrow will bring decisions and departures, questions about how a Baltimore nurse and a global CEO might build something lasting across the distance of their different worlds. But tonight in Paris, Maya allows herself to simply feel the joy of this unexpected gift, a connection that crossed boundaries of class and circumstance, that saw beyond surfaces to the person beneath. As she turns from the window, Maya's phone lights up with a text from James. "Breakfast on your balcony at 8, one last Parisian morning before reality intrudes." Smiling, she replies, "I'll be waiting." Whatever comes next, consulting positions or long-distance relationships, professional growth or personal revelation, Maya knows that boarding the wrong plane that day in Baltimore was actually the first step on exactly the right journey. Would you have accepted the consulting job? Pursued the relationship with James? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.